Come on, again. Oh, where am I?
Good evening and welcome to Sporlitiks, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the constitutional conservative, Stephen, the independent thinker, and my cousin Todd. We've got a pretty short show for you tonight, we hope. President Biden visits a war zone Israel today as Major League Baseball and the Phillies whip some can. Jim Jordan, will he be the next Speaker of the House? And college football, did you see Dion's team play? And what team really are you backing in college football and how they do this week, which was week 7 in college football? The Middle East is on the verge of an abyss, according to the United Nations. And NASCAR with Steven. He'll say what's going on with the playoffs. Senate Republicans offer support for McHenry to break House impasse and more if we can fit it in. First up, Steven with NASCAR. What is going on with NASCAR, Steven, this week?
Well, we just have less than a handful of races left. I think 3 or 4. This week was Las Vegas. They go to Homestead, Miami next week. That used to be the last race, but they changed it for some reason. But this past race was a great race, and Kyle Larson, who's one of my favorite drivers, ended up winning the race. I knew he was from the beginning, but I didn't even put any skin in the game, and I should have. I was like, I know Kyle Larson's going to win. This is his track. And then next week, and he's in the lead in the points right now. He's an odds-on favorite to win it all, and I think he will. So I mean, if you want to see who else is behind him, you can look it up because I'm pretty sure he's going to win. He's just one of the top 5 most talented drivers I think it's ever come into NASCAR. And he's red hot right now. And he's gonna, if he doesn't win, he's gonna come in the top 5 at Homestead. So it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see if anybody can take him out at this point. And I wish at the very beginning I had gone with my head instead of, I don't know what I went with Ross Chastain and put just a couple dollars. You could win a lot of money at the beginning of the year. But I think Kyle Larson's got it off. If he doesn't, I'll be surprised. I'll be shocked, and maybe that's just the way it's going to be. But the playoffs are good. Everybody gets eliminated every week, and but nobody's going to beat Kyle Larson. I'm willing to bet not the house, but the garage and maybe one of the sheds.
All right, thank you. Let's go on to college football. Aguna, how did Dion's team do this week? I mean, now everyone's talking about college football because of Deion Sanders. Before that, I was always an Auburn fan, and I and you and Steven were talking about college football, but now it seems like people like cousin Todd talk about college football.
Yeah, and I don't think, and I didn't watch the whole game Friday, but I saw where they lost in double overtime to Stanford. They were actually up by 29 points, and Stanford walked them down. So again, you love Deion or you hate him, kind of thing. And so there's a lot of folks out there that's saying, hey, he's still not ready. It's only his first year though. So what did you expect? I think those type of games, once he gets his recruiting and leverages the portal enough, you're going to have still, he's only going to get better. And this is for year one for him to at least have a couple of Pac-12 games, that he won a couple of them is legitimate. Considering this team, again, they only had one win a year ago, right? So they're competitive. They're competing. Yeah, they should have probably won against Stanford. I mean, that's a pretty significant margin to drop 29 points against a team and then lose in double overtime like that. So still a ways to go. But again, he's got a lot of folks engaged and talking about college football, like you said. So, we'll see. We'll see. There's still a lot more football to be played. SEC football. I know you're an Auburn fan, Stacey, so it's still going to go through the SEC, the title game. So we'll see what happens.
Right. All right. Steven, any comments? before we
Yeah,
move
did you?
on to Major League Baseball?
Yeah, did you see Dion's post game interview that he did? We have to show it next week. I wish I had said something to you earlier. It was great. It was so just honest and just like he stood up like a man. He said, and he didn't blame anybody, but all he said was, everybody here, do you love football or do you like football? He said, because I love football. And I need everybody to love football. And it's the way it was so inspirational, and the way he was talking was really cool. And if you haven't heard, you have to go back and hear what he said, because it made a lot of sense. It was really cool, and you could really feel like it really came from his heart for his team. He doesn't need anything. He's flush.
Right.
He's got everything he needs. But he's trying to do something with his team, trying to do something really cool, and bring these guys up in a really positive way. And if you really need to hear his post-game interview, it was really sweet, really cool.
Okay. Thank you. Major League Baseball playoffs, Aguna.
Yeah. So if you don't believe already, you need to believe. The hunt for Red October. Yeah. So Phils are looking pretty good. They closed out the series with the Braves. I got a lot of friends that are Brave fans. They are very salty. They were the best team in baseball. I mean, they had 104 wins. They had the batting, they had the star power, they had the home field advantage, and the Phils went down there, got one down there. Yeah, they got one, game one. Braves got back game two after coming back from 4 down to win game 2 by 1. So the Phils let them slip that one away. But then they closed out the series in dramatic fashion. I mean, and they were actually, they were in a jam too. They had two runners on first and third, and they were only up by 1. So they had runners in scoring position, and they were still able to close out the game and the series. And so now, they're going up against, again, a younger and a lesser seed in Arizona, and they've handled their business at home. They're up 2 games already. So we'll see what happens. I think, they're either going to go up against the Stros again or the Rangers. But the Stros, I think the Rangers are up 2 games, maybe 3 games in that series.
Let me pull it up.
Well, I think, they're up 2 games. They're playing tonight. The Rangers are up 2 games. Yeah, so they're playing tonight. So it looks as if it may be an Arlington versus Philly World Series. And it's funny because the Cowboys and the Eagles are going to be playing each other in a couple weeks too. So, we'll see. I mean, it was disappointing last year. If they can work and get it back, they only need 6 more wins. 6 more wins from a championship. All right, so we'll see if they can chase these down. But, yeah, really excited. If you look at the fans at Citizens Bank, they almost taking on like an Eagle fan mentality up there with just the way that they're carrying on. And, anybody outside of Philadelphia is probably a bad thing. But, I mean, the passion and how they're just getting behind these guys is very inspirational. I mean, Philadelphia is either you love or you hate us kind of thing. And people from Philly don't understand, the passion behind Philly sports. But, we'll see how it pans out. I think it's going to be a good series. I think I think if they can just at least get one in Arizona, I think they can close it out at home. So we'll see what happens. But, I mean, you got to like Harper. The pitching, the hitting for Philadelphia right now has been phenomenal. I mean, that game 2, he just rocked that first one. They went off 10 runs. I mean, dang, I wish they could have saved some of those runs for game 3, but they look pretty good. So we'll see how it happens. And Arizona played uncharacteristically bad. For them, I mean, they were only down by 2, and they weren't able to kind of claw back in it. That was kind of unfortunate. But hey, look, I will legitimately look for parade on Broad Street. I mean, we can get these next couple of games in. We'll see what happens. But yeah, either one of those Texas teams are going to be tough, though. But let's get to the series first.
Stephen or Todd?
Go ahead, Todd.
Okay. I think the Flyers have a good chance of winning. Hopefully, the Flyers will take it all the way to the Super Bowl. As for the what was the other team's name?
It doesn't matter at this point.
Never mind.
Hey, don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself. We get it.
Stephen.
We understand.
I like the exuberance and the excitement from Aguna, and hopefully that will propel them to this. It would be really cool. I don't have any problem with them winning. If they got a really good team, they should win. It's been a little while, so go ahead. And then I don't know. It just these years are like this, and then Philadelphia might. It looks like they might win a Super Bowl. Things happen like that with these certain towns. They get the team, that team wins, that team wins, that team wins, that team wins. It might be that kind of year this year. And, I'll have the same thing in Washington in the year 25-25.
Oh, you think so?
And what we didn't mention, we didn't mention, Stacey, that the teams that got put out of the series, I mean, the O's, being in the DMV area, man, what a collapse.
The Baltimore. You mean the Baltimore for cousin Todd, the Baltimore Orioles?
Yeah, that's management. That's people up here. The management screwed them up. They screwed everything up. When it started with that guy, the announcer, it started with him, and then after that, everybody just went to hell. That's what happened.
That
Remember?
Was, woo.
Yep.
That was interesting. So, we'll see. We'll see how this shapes out. I think. The last time the Phils won the series back in 2008, I believe two teams from the same division. I think it was the East. I think it was Tampa Bay and Boston played. Right. And so there hasn't been another team from the same series.
I don't think that was the teams. I think it was the Cowboys and the Steelers.
It was Tampa Bay. It was the Sox and the Rays. And when both of those teams from the same division played each other and went to the series, the Phils beat them. So the other series was so Astros and the Texans are in the same division. So we'll see what happens if the Phils get to the series. It may be a repeat of that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to say that I wish that the other Philadelphia sports teams would wear Phillies paraphernalia and Phillies gear, just like the Phillies, the Flyers, and the Sixers wore the gear of the Philadelphia Eagles when the Eagles were when they were in the Super Bowl. We saw the Philadelphia Flyers come to practice, and they had on Eagles gear. The Phillies players had on Eagles gears. The Sixers players had on Eagles gear. I wish other teams would do that for the Phillies.
Texans, well, for the Phillies, they do.
No, I wish that everybody would wear. They would wear Phillies gear, and you know what I mean. The Eagles players would wear Phillies gear. That's all I'm hoping.
They do. But what you're going to see, especially because it's going to be on Fox Sports.
Oh.
See a lot of
I'm
Cowboys
sorry, I
fans.
almost
If
fell
the
asleep.
Rangers get there, the Cowboys fans are going to be there. It's going to be one of those things.
I'm sorry, I almost fell asleep. I thought I timed this to miss all of this Philly nonsense segment. Anyway.
Well, first,
welcome to Nas. Welcome to Sporlitiks, where sports and politics mix and mingle. This is Nas. I can't believe it. He's showing his face. Nas showing his face.
He's showing at least part.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, this is way too much Philly talk.
So do you have a comment about the Braves or the best team in baseball? Do you want to comment?
Why is he wearing a mask, Steven? Yeah.
I figured it would upset somebody, so I wore a mask. But no,
why are you wearing a mask in your own house, in your own place?
Again, I figured it would upset somebody.
Mandate. He's mandating.
That's why I wore the mask. But no, man, you got to tip your cap, man. Philly was the better team. Look, the Braves had one of the greatest offenses in baseball history, but we didn't have the pitching to go along with it. And it's only so long fake thugs can pretend. Y'all know the lyrics. I ain't got to tell them to you.
The bullpen pitching in Game 3, kind of, I was like, okay, they're giving up the game. I don't know. I was like, you had that lineup in Game 3. I don't think they were very confident they were gonna. I guess they were putting all their eggs in the basket to win Game 4. But
sir, your mask, Sir Julio, your mask keeps going down. In a minute, your whole face is going to be seen.
No, like I said, the mask is just a prop to anger certain people.
You're a nice
I'm pointing as if the audience can see.
You got to point the other way,
like Hollywood Squares, right? Yeah, so the audience can see that I was trying to.
And that's this way. That's this way. That's not
My
me.
bad.
I don't
Sir,
have
Hodge, you're a
anybody
healthy,
going past
strong
me.
brother. You're a
I
healthy,
did not
strong,
promise
young
to be a
brother.
master of direction. So yeah, this is
All
what it is.
right.
But
On to the
good
okay.
luck.
You
Good
want to
luck to
talk
the
about
no. I'm just gonna say good luck to the Phillies on a real
I can't believe
serious.
it.
Appreciate
All
that,
right.
man.
Steven, you want to talk about your Washington Commanders, then Aguna, and then Nas can bring it in with the Dirty Birds of the South?
Well, Steven, they played each other, so they played each other. This the direction is he
Steven.
played him.
I didn't mute you. You muted yourself.
I didn't. What
I
the
didn't mute
deal
you.
is? Well, somebody did.
Do you want to talk about the Commanders?
I want to talk about the Washington Redskins eating those
There's no team called
Falcons.
that.
And they
All
ate
right.
the Falcons up. There's nothing. The Falcons are done for this year. But you know who's not? The Washington Redskins. You know why?
Yeah.
Because they'll beat the Giants. They'll be 4-3. The Philly's going to lose to Miami because of a superior team, and there will be one game behind you. This ain't over yet. This ain't over yet. We can take the Eagles. We can take the Eagles. We have a team. We have a team. Dude, the Eagles have been lackluster. Who'd you lose to? The Jets? My high school team can beat the Jets.
They didn't though. So
Man.
I'm telling you.
Hey,
what I'm telling you. I'm
it.
telling you, this is we have a competition now. You know how many years it's been? What has it been? 100 years? I can compete with you now? No, we can compete with you. We have a team. We have a good team. We have a quarterback that's getting it together, and he's tough as a brick house. He's a tough dude, and we got a good team. We have good players. We have a good D. This is not over yet. This could surprise some people.
And what you're leaving out, Steven.
Well, hold on, Aguna. Before
you're leaving out the fact that you lost.
Hold on.
We beat you already this year.
I understand that.
Before you do
but
your
we're only 6 games. We're only 6 games in. We're only 6 games in.
Don't leave it out. That's a legitimate point.
But it is. You're right. But we can beat We can beat the next. We can win the next game. There's only 6 games in. How many weeks is there? There's 17 weeks. There's 17 weeks.
Trying to talk.
Okay. Look at the
Nas
standings.
is trying to talk.
Do you think you're gonna beat Miami?
Well,
yeah,
see.
Look. Before y'all do the NFC East gangbanging, she asked about that particular game, the Falcons and the Commanders. Again, trademark Commanders, not
the Redskins.
But look, the Commanders are a better team than the Falcons. The Falcons, to me, are quarterback away. Hopefully, we can get Heineke in. I needed Ritter to play terribly, so that could force the coach's hand. Maybe now it's Heineken time. That's what I'm hoping for. But, yeah, Sam Howell's coming along. Kudos to the coaching staff for bringing him along. I think Washington has a good chance to not make a wild card, but be much better than what people expected. As far as him talking about taking down Philly or winning the division, anything like that. That's why fan is short for fanatic. This is why sports teams will always win. Owners will always win because you can sell fans a dream. They can have one sliver, tiny piece of hope, and they'll turn that into they think they got a shot to win the whole thing. So as long as they can do that, sports teams will always print money. And this is the prime example. The man who
you're the same way, but you're the same fan I am. You're the same fan I am. You live and die. So you live and die.
Yeah.
So you're talking about yourself as well. You're telling on yourself.
No, I'm actually one of the worst fans out there. I am a bandwagon fan who immediately leaves the team when they start losing.
Hey, if you know this,
Me too.
hey, I changed teams a bunch of times, but now I'm back on board. We're just alike on this because I did the same thing.
We know.
I have
we
no
know,
problem
Steven.
leaving my team when they are too stupid to hang with.
It's all this wishful thinking. And again, Vegas is in on this. So as we get to the Philadelphia portion of this, we had a horrible game. All right, we had a horrible game. Jalen Hurts threw 3 interceptions. Swift fumbled. There was a banged up Jets secondary, and the Eagles threw the ball too much. They didn't run the ball. I mean, there were portions of that game where Hurts' decision making was bad. They were dropping balls. Smith had a drop. A.J. Brown had a drop. And then Jalen Carter was out, Slay was out. So there was a lot of weird. Lane Johnson got hurt. So it happens. I mean, the league is such that if you turn the ball over 4 times, even to a bad team, you're going to keep them in it. I mean, the Jets had one touchdown. They had like 4 or 5 field goals. I mean, they hung around, and voila, they won it at the end based on an interception that Jalen threw. So am I worried that some team like the Redskins or the Commanders or whoever Steven is trying to put this team in his mind, am I worried that that team is going to somehow miraculously make a run? Nah, not really. I mean, they don't have the personnel. I think legitimately, yeah, they're going to win some games. It's good for the NFL if all of these teams have a kind of, like Nas was saying, Redskins are at 500 now. Oh, wow, they may have a shot. The Jets are at 500 now. You see in that AFC East division, the Patriots are falling apart. So now you got the Bills, you got Miami, and now you got the Jets having some hope, and Aaron Rodgers may come back. He was throwing the ball on the sideline. The Jets had never beaten the Eagles in their history, and the Eagles had an 11-game winning streak. So it was prime for an upset. It was just prime for an upset, just like the Cleveland 49er game, prime for an upset. So you look at this, and the Jets have won 2 in a row now. They're right back there, just like the Commanders. They're in the thick of things. The Eagles had a horrible game. Now you're questioning the coaching. Now you're questioning the personnel. It's the ebb and flows of the season. And my brother and I were having a conversation about teams peaking at different times. I think 49ers peaked early. They got the momentum. Now you see McCaffrey's hurt. Debo Samuel's hurt. They're going through some adversity. Same thing for the Eagles, going through some adversity. Good teams find way to win. Now everybody's on Detroit. Detroit's supposed to be that team to beat now. And, 49ers are pretenders. The Eagles are pretenders. Oh, the Cowboys beat San Diego. Now they're back in it. So this is what the NFL is all about. That's why it's a male soap opera. I'm not worried. Whatever is meant to be will be. Even the Falcons being at 500 here, as you're showing that, Stacey. Again, all these teams have a legitimate shot to at least make a wild card. And as long as there's hope, and the NFL is 18 weeks, it's a short season. These fans are gonna, they're gonna coalesce around these different storylines, right? So, yeah, I'm not worried. We'll see how it plays out. I still think the Eagles are legitimate. They just signed Julio Jones, which, again, gives you a big target down by the red zone. I don't think it's a splashy signing of anything, but I think it does add an element of or weaponry to the to the art.
Yeah, but then what happens? What happens to
so we'll see.
When they signed Julio Jones, then they got what they're gonna do with Quez Watkins? Because if I was Quez Watkins, I'd be scared.
Well, I mean, the Eagles don't have a packed receiving core. Julio is only going to be in there in the red zone. He's not going to be in there. I mean, Quez will still be in the slot, between the 20s. You get in the red zone, you can do you got Julio there, you can go big. And who are you going to put against Julio? It's a matchup problem because if you go big nickel, you got to put a corner or a linebacker. If you put a linebacker on Julio Jones, I'll take Julio Jones every day in that lineup. And I'll take Julio Jones against your best slot corner as well, and a safety. So it's a matchup problem. And then, of course, you still got Dallas Goedert and the tight ends there. So he comes as this hybrid receiver type tight end in the red zone. Again, not a splashy signing. Again, it's one of those signings you just use to complement your offense when you're trying to make a run down the stretch, if you would. So if he stays healthy and, you get him in there, Quez Watkins is still the burner guy. He's still going to stretch the field. So I don't think – if I'm Quez Watkins, I wouldn't be worried.
Yeah, but Julio is my age. He's
hell no. Man,
he's about my age.
No, he is not, man.
But where has Julio been? Julio hasn't been relevant for what, 5 years? When was the last time Julio was relevant?
Listen to what I just said. Did you not listen to anything
I just said? But he's not.
Nah,
but how can he be any good?
I was doing some talking.
How can he be any good?
Y'all should have heard those wonderful points I was making on mute. But look, I'll just simplify this way. Quez Watkins was so terrible that they're willing to take a flyer on Julio. That's all this is. Julio is good enough to play partial snap. Well, he's not going to be asked to play every down. He's going to be asked to play partial snaps, and he'll make up for the bad play of Quez. But Quez is a developmental project. He's a speed guy. Hands not so good. Doesn't run routes so well. Never been on the same page as Jalen. And then had the nerve to try to bark at Jalen the other day. I think they're letting him know, like, look, dude, you may not be long for not only this team, but this league. You better get it together. We're going to bring the vet in here to kind of smooth things out. But, yeah,
Right.
shout out to the great Julio
Again,
Jones.
I don't see them. Again, they signed Julio to the practice squad, right? He's not coming in there to be like this legitimate number 3 or even 4 guy. He's a situational guy you're going to use in the red zone.
Yeah, well,
I get what you're saying, Nas. It makes sense. I mean, yeah, okay, you're bringing a veteran guy in there to complement, and you see this. There's a little gap here in performance with Quez, and Quez, has some serious drops, right? So it's like, okay, Quez, you put on notice a little bit. I get that, but at the same time,
I was told he was born with feet for hands. This is just what I was told as a reporter.
So you're basically saying he's Aguilar 2.0, right? You're saying he's Aguilar 2.0, and he came in there. Now, Quez was never, he was never like supposed to be this big thing in the offense anyway. They got your boy from Atlanta in there to return kicks and to kind of stretch the field a little bit too. So he was already on notice anyway. So,
well, isn't it interesting how Nas disappeared? Maybe somebody was coming in to take him back to the jail cell.
Hopefully it wasn't a raid. Hopefully it wasn't a raid.
What? Jail cell? How dare you?
You hear
they put an oversized jacket on him with long sleeves.
Stacy. That was Stacy.
Yeah,
so it's like they didn't want us to see what's going on.
Man.
Would you say that if he was white about jail?
You better go get them cigarettes. Get them cigarettes and get back to the yard.
Isn't that a good one? These people are so terrible.
Well, I want to talk about the historic visit to a war zone by United States President today. President Biden went to Israel, and he's probably already back home because the Air Force One is like an apartment, a flying apartment. Go in there, take a nap, take a shower, relax, chill, and he'll be back home in a minute. But his talk with Netanyahu and the war team when he went today, according to Axios.com article by Barak Ravid, and you see this picture of President Biden and Netanyahu embracing. Where's Keith? Keith, do you want to talk to the significance of President Biden going to a war zone to talk with a leader of that war zone?
Okay. I don't know about, him going over there. I would say that he's not trustworthy. He says publicly that, yes, we want to support Israel and so forth. He asked for $100 billion to build up their dome defense. However, I think he's behind the scenes. He's undermining them because he's trying to dictate. In other words, he's trying to encourage them to stand down. He's trying to encourage Israel to cease fire. So I don't see how that double standard is going to work. And that's basically where we are now. I've been following this. I don't usually follow, foreign affairs, as you know. But when it comes to Israel, on
a U.S. president for wanting peace.
Yeah, well,
so let's look at this Axios. Let's look at this Axios article. It says why it matters after 12 days of war against Hamas, and with thousands dead and the Arab world in an uproar, one of Israel's biggest concerns is maintaining international support, particularly from the United States. But Biden has his own concerns. During his hour-long meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and a subsequent talk with members of Israel's war cabinet, Biden asked about the escalating tension between Israel and Lebanon-based Hezbollah on the border of Israel and Lebanon. Stephen, do you want to talk to how the UN thinks that that the Middle East is on the verge of an abyss? And is this a part of this verge of abyss with the Lebanon-based Hezbollah starting to rev up now to the point that our United States Embassy in Lebanon is very concerned?
Oh yeah, this world has never gone through anything like this as we're going through right now. And it's really, it was a kind of avoidable, but I guess it's been predicted by the Bible. This is what's going to happen. And this is the precipice of World War III. God said he wouldn't take us and kill us with water anymore. It would be fire. So it would have to be nuclear. So that's probably the way we're leaning right now, because there's so many people. It's so many people's stories that could have been avoided. All of this could have been avoided. But this is China. This is Iran. This is our own country working with China, working with Iran, our own government working with China and Iran. This is something that is unprecedented in this world. And I mean, if you have to go, I'd rather be in a nuclear war and die that way than be tortured the way the people that the Hamas kidnapped and the treatment that they're probably getting it at this time. But yeah, this is the entire world. It's going to be engulfed in this, and because I guess this is what Joe Biden wanted.
Noises.
I guess it's what your administration wanted, because they don't want another election. So if we're at war, we don't have another election. You can't hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's a noise going on.
I don't hear that, but you can comment, Cousin Todd.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, what he said was ridiculous.
What did I say? Because I couldn't hear me.
I could hear you. You're talking about a nuclear war, which we're not having a nuclear war. But Republicans want you to think that so you can be scared for the rest of your life.
I'm not scared.
Okay. So we're not having a nuclear war, and Israel is not going to pull us into any wars. We're smarter than that. And so Biden, you know, the one who you think is senile, who's used to doing this for breakfast, he's been doing this all of his life. So that's the reason why he went over there and
doing what, Todd? Doing what? Eating breakfast?
Negotiating.
Yeah, he can eat breakfast. He eats oatmeal.
Negotiating a peace treaty. And now this is what I wondered. What would Donald Trump do in this situation?
We wouldn't be in this situation if Donald Trump was there. We wouldn't be in this situation.
Interrupting, Stephen. We were all quiet.
He asked a question, and I said Donald Trump wouldn't be in this situation.
He's not talking to you.
We had no wars when Donald Trump was in office.
You're still talking.
We had no wars when Donald Trump was in office.
You're still talking.
And he keeps repeating the same thing over and over again. So anyway, Joe Biden did what he was supposed to do and went over there and negotiated. Now, which was smart to do. And this tells you he has all of his faculties and he's been in politics all of his life. So when you have a president like that, who is not a warmonger, who doesn't threaten other countries and all that kind of nonsense, and who knows better than to get suckered into a war, I think we're in good hands with Joe Biden.
Wow. That's interesting.
So let's look at this screen from Axios. You see it continues to say that Biden was particularly concerned that Iran-backed Hezbollah would decide to join the war, increasing the odds of a broader conflict in the Middle East. Since the early days of the war, Aguna, the Biden administration has sent private and public messages to Hezbollah and Iran, warning them not to join in the fighting. Hezbollah has said it is willing to help Hamas. Aguna?
Yeah, and this is the hypocrisy of this whole conversation. There's been conflict in the Middle East, in this region, since 1948. I mean, that's if you can't believe that, then you legitimately shouldn't be having this conversation. It's always been conflict in that area. It's been that way. 7-Day War, that incursion of Israel into Lebanon, not even a decade ago. There's been conflict in this area, right? And so Biden is doing what most presidents, historically U.S. presidents, is doing. They're coming in there, they're supporting Israel, but at the same time, they're saying, hey, let's not let this conflict broaden. Because again, you saw what happened with the misinformation, or was supposed misinformation from Hamas about the hospital strike. So that got out there, that was blamed on Israel. Everybody pulled out. And so all the Arab countries pulled out. So it's a very sticky situation where if things get out of control, they may all team up against Israel. So he's walking a tightrope, as all U.S. presidents historically have done with this Palestinian-Israeli conflict. If you're honest with yourself, that's the way you do. You have to negotiate on both sides, and there's a humanitarian crisis. And the thing is, this is a global economy, it's a global world. You have Arab Israeli folks all over the world. There are protests, pro and against protests of this conflict. So it's not just one blanket, hey, Israel is right, everybody else is wrong type thing. It's like, hey, you know what? Even though you were attacked, you need to be careful, because it is a false equivalent to think that the Israeli military against Hamas is even a similar or a fair fight. They can destroy both the West Bank and Gaza with one press of a button. So the thing is, if you do that, and you're going to expand the war, you're going to legitimize, because again, Hamas knows what they're doing. They're baiting Israel into this thing to make them look like the aggressor. Because again, it's like, you're going to come back and level everyone.
You're breaking up, Aguna.
What legitimacy do you have? So Biden did what he's supposed to do. You don't want this conflict to expand. You're seeing Iran is sitting back. Historically, both Iran and Lebanon have saber rattled a little bit, but they didn't act. And so if that happens again, I mean, they won't get involved with the conflict, even though it's a proxy war for Iran right now to be with Gaza. So again, the U.S. president has to walk this tightrope. There are a lot of different factors in there. You guys, you must be crazy if you think it's an easy issue. It's like black or white. This is a very complex issue, and that's why they pay people big money to deal with that. It's not. We're not going to sit here on this show and say, "Well, he needs to do this." That, yeah, we're going to criticize Biden no matter what he does. Okay, because you don't like Biden. He's doing. What
you're
going to
praise him no matter what he does. You're going to praise him
to the table and resolve it. So if
you're going to praise him no matter what he does,
that means you have your own agenda.
You have your own agenda.
What is wrong with you? Yes, you don't want to engage in an intelligent conversation, so you.
But you praise Joe Biden no matter what he does.
Okay,
you are an
apologist
for Joe Biden.
Like I said,
you're an apologist for Joe Biden.
Presidents have done this.
They have not. Donald Trump did not do this. Donald Trump kicked their asses in every way you could kick somebody's ass.
Okay.
Joe Biden is a punk. Joe Biden don't know where his ass is. Joe Biden don't know where his ass is. So Donald Trump was 100 million times better than Joe Biden. And everybody on this show, and everybody who can see it, hear it, everybody knows that Donald Trump.
Stacey, you can't allow him to talk over everybody.
He thinks he's loud because he's loud about it. You're not
no,
loud.
but Stacey is the crazy person that
Nas.
Stacey allows this. This is Stacey's fault.
Yeah.
He just loves my name. Todd, you just love my name. You just keep saying it for no reason. You sound dumb.
Yeah, you're basically
Yeah. I'm here. I think.
Okay, you want to make your comment?
Yeah, I think Aguna added a lot of context to this. Which specific questions did you want to hit on though? So I don't, color all over the page and
before you hit on it. Donald Trump's son-in-law already bought peace to the Middle East.
Right. That's a whole nother ball of wax. But Stacey, like which area do we want to go to? So the hospital thing, which is being disputed, I don't think we can believe any.
Explain to somebody like Todd what the hospital thing is.
Well, Todd, as a well-learned man, would already know, but someone similar to someone else on this panel who clearly is eating chocolate chip cookies or something in the background. Look,
that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So the hospital situation, like this is a really serious situation. You've seen the doctors out in front of the hospital with, casualties of war, the people who are wounded and also some people who are no longer with us talking about who the strike was from. It's difficult to believe the story presented by Israel and the AP because if Hamas had weaponry like that, I promise you they would have been using it a long time ago. Then the other part is always the difficulty of taking any report from Israel head on. Because as we saw with the reporter Sharon a couple of months ago, where she was killed, and initially they said, no, it was Hamas who did it. And then they said, oh, well, if it was us, it was friendly fire. And then finally, later on, they had to admit after investigation, it was from their side that actually killed the reporter. And then we've seen the soldiers show up at her funeral and beat up the people who were mourning. So, there's a difficulty in having this conversation when we have an unreliable partner. And that's the other part where kind of Guna was getting to, of the tightrope that Joe Biden has to walk. Stephen, there are mouse traps you could use if you have mice that are eating styrofoam in the background, clearly becoming an impediment to the show. But anyway, finishing up. So Biden has
that
to.
wasn't. Oh, Stephen was on mute.
I was on mute. Thank you. Maybe it was your mice.
Well, that's an interesting sound. But but getting back to it. So I'm going to bring up the tightrope that Joe Biden has to walk. He has to reassure the partner, which is Israel. So of course he comes in strident for Israel, saying they're going to back him. He's already allocated some money that they're going to give to Israel, and that's because of, like Aguna said, you want to deter Hezbollah or any other outside agitators to get involved in this conflict. But the other side is you have to rein Israel in. And that's why the ceasefire, which actually didn't get voted on, didn't pass in the UN, which should be on the table. That's where Biden has to show some courage and say, look, there needs to be a ceasefire. We need to stop this for a while so people can get off of the emotional bench. We as Americans know it is really difficult to legislate during a really emotional period during a loss of life. That's why after 9/11, we got the Patriot Act, something that never should have been done, really anti-American, really against private citizens' rights and everything else. That's what happens during emotional periods, which is why you want to be careful, have a ceasefire, and try to figure out things. But you also can't have a people living in basically an open-air prison and say, well, they're human shields and we're attacking to devastate, not necessarily to target those individuals. When you say those are your war aims, it's really hard to believe you telling us that you're not doing something that's not akin to genocide. If you see that brilliant interview with Mark Lamont Hill, where he basically got one of the IDF spokesmen to admit, like, okay, what you're planning is actually against the Geneva Convention. Like, this is against the international rule of law. Like what you're saying,
what they're doing is against the law. They're using human shields. Sir, they're using human shields. What they're doing is against the law. Why don't they come out? Why don't they come out and don't use people to hide behind? They hide behind babies and women. The people that you support are wimps. They're punks.
Can you?
No, his point is too stupid to hear. His point's too stupid.
It's
too stupid.
I understand you got your Jerry curl done today and you're feeling
yourself.
But just relax.
I ain't no different than I am from every other show. You can go back and watch every show now. My hair don't change, neither does my.
Good for you.
Yeah, let him speak. It's a bunch of garbage.
I'll be brief.
It's a bunch of garbage. No, they should not. They should keep bombing until they run out of bombs, and then they should make more bombs and.
You're making yourself look bad. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can't have a discussion if it's like that. But look, I don't want to monopolize everybody else's time. I'm going to be respectful of everyone else. So I'll just lay that out until we can get to other topics and pass the mic to the next person and be respectful.
You were the last person for that in particular thing. We're going to move on to the U.S. Speaker of the House of Representatives. And let me present the screen for you. The next speaker vote is set for Thursday as Jordan looks to win backers, according to thehill.com. Cousin Todd, let's start with you. Representative Jim Jordan lost for the second day in a row his bid to become Speaker of the House. What's next?
Well, he's going to run again and again and again and again, sort of like McCarthy. And he's going to continue to lose. And then they're going to there's a black guy who could get this spot, which they're definitely not going to give it to the first Negro.
No, he's a Democrat and he's insane. He's a Democrat and he's insane.
Right.
No, they don't want him.
Right. So anyway,
I'm not talking about anything.
I'm talking about Jeffrey. I'm talking about Jeffrey.
He's talking about Hakeem Jeffries, who has the highest rating of anybody in Congress from Israel.
He's the dumbest person who's ever lived. He's the dumbest person who's ever lived.
Right.
I don't care
That
what
would be
color he
right.
is. He's just stupid.
That
You
would
know
be
you
you.
have no credibility, right? So when you talk, nobody believes
Right,
what you're
because
saying.
you say I have no credibility, I must not.
No,
Thank
you
you. Thank you.
exemplify
You've
that.
labeled me with no credibility. Yeah, I have
Yeah,
no
because
credibility. Okay,
look,
and
for
Nod, you're a
example,
unicorn,
I
and
can give you an
you
example.
fart fairy dust.
You
You're a
can sit
unicorn who
here and
farts
have
fairy
legitimate.
dust.
Look, listen to yourself. We're trying to
And
have
I
a
mean,
legitimate
listen to
debate.
you. It's the
All
same
you're
thing.
doing
You
is acting
say
like a
you
child.
have no
You're acting
credibility.
like
Everything I've
Well,
said is the truth. Everything I've said is right. All you
okay.
do is
you
lie.
sound like a
But I have
child,
no
man.
credibility.
Can we
You're
grow
going to be
up?
ashamed of
Can we
yourself
grow up,
one day.
please?
Be
But you're
quiet.
too
Be
high on
quiet.
yourself right
Our
now.
listeners
Okay.
You're
are
too
watching
high
your
on
behavior,
yourself right
Stephen.
now. But one
Jason
day
allows
you're going to come
him.
down to
I'm
earth and you're going to know
Allows
how
him
wrong
to
you've
just
been.
go on and on and
You've been
on.
wrong.
Your insecurity is
Okay.
playing out on
Okay.
Thank
air.
you.
Anyway,
Jesus.
All
so
right. Cousin
like
Todd,
Jesus,
sum it
grow
up.
up.
okay. So like I was saying, well, first now I have to defend this. Do you know Jeffrey's education? No, you have no idea what schools he's been to. You know he's a lawyer. You know. So anyway, when you say he's stupid, he's stupid, he's stupid, that makes you look ridiculous. So anyway, the Republicans are just fighting a losing battle, and what happens in that case is Israel's not going to be able to get any money because nobody's going to be able to delegate because of the Republicans. So what are they going to do for money? We can't just hand over money when you have no speaker. So the Republicans are doing this, just like the other Republican who was holding up the military. Over 350 positions. He's
Coach Tuberville.
Yeah, that's Tuberville. And so this is what the Republicans do. They just hold up progress. So what are they going to
Thank
do
you.
for money? What is Israel going to do? Because the
So,
Republicans are silly.
Keith, the question would be what, like Todd said, what is Israel and Ukraine going to do to get support from the United States? Will they allow McHenry from North Carolina to substitute as the Speaker of the House until it's time for another vote and they can find a person to do the job?
Well, it's hard to know. Hard to know what they're going to do. I'll be honest with you. I can't always defend the Republicans for what they do, and there are 20 Republicans that went against Jim Jordan. 20 of them. 20 Republicans held it up. Just like 8 Republicans went against McCarthy and got him ousted. So I can't really defend the Republicans anymore.
Well, that
not
was
in this
that
situation.
was his boy toy, Gates.
So anyway, what I have to say is that it's just, it's hard to answer that question. We have to see what happens. I mean, all the rest of the people that are experts on the show who think they're experts and will probably give you some reason for this or that. But I'll tell you, the Republicans are not. A house divided against itself will not stand. Abraham Lincoln said, quoting the words of Jesus, "The house divided cannot stand." So this house is definitely divided, and Republicans are
Okay,
fighting.
thank you.
So there you go.
Stephen, what is the solution for the next speaker vote? They
This is
passed
why.
the second round of ballots today. They're looking to do it again tomorrow. He lost more votes. Jim Jordan lost more votes today than he did yesterday. What is the option and solution, Stephen?
Well, this is
For
why I'm not a
Republicans, or
Democrat.
do they make a deal with the Democrats and allow Hakeem Jeffries to
A
become Speaker of the
Democrat.
House?
This is about the Republicans, man.
Yeah, and he
Stay on
keeps talking
topic.
about Republicans. Answer the question. What are they going to do?
I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent.
So
And that's
what are the Republicans going to do?
they're going to screw it up like they've been screwing it up. They have somebody in there that has their ideals that most of them like, but they're having some kind of contest or something's going on and they can't agree on it. And if we get this guy in, this is the same guy who thought that if too many people get on an island, then the island's going to capsize because there's too
No.
many people on it.
That would be Johnson from Georgia, not Hakeem Jeffries. You see what I mean?
They all look
You
alike.
see what I mean?
No, I thought it was the same guy's name.
Well,
sounded-
it's
Yeah, of
not.
course you
See,
did.
now, do you take back
All
what
right,
you
so
said
like,
about
would you
Jeffries?
say that guy? Did you say where is that guy now?
Never mind.
Where is he now?
What about Hakeem Jeffries?
No, you do. Why would we want a
The
Democrat?
ultimate
Why would
what
we have a
about is
small? Why would we have a small? No, because we don't want him because a Democrat. We have a small lead
We
in
don't
the
want him
House.
'cause he's
Why would we
stupid
want
or
a
a
But you
Democrat?
said you're an independent. Who is we? Who is we if you're an
Why
independent?
would America then no Democrat, no
gave away the
Republican,
game.
no if it was
Yeah,
like
I'm
if
not
there
a
was an
Republican,
independent
but
party,
we.
why would anybody? Would
You
the
tried to
Democrats?
play
Would
three-card Monty and
Let's say the
Aguna
we.
found the
Aguna
card.
or a new Guna. Would you want a Republican if you have the majority? Would you want the Republican to be there? No. So I will repeat. I will double down on we. It's we. We would never want this.
Well, thank
You
you, Mr.
wouldn't want it.
Independent.
What are you
I wouldn't
talking
want it.
about?
Nobody would want it. Nobody
Okay, so
would
people
want
are
it.
bored.
What are you
People
talking
are
about?
bored
I'm
with
It
this.
makes
lost.
sense to have a
We've lost.
speaker of your
Excuse me.
house that's
We
not
have
even
lost
in your
viewers.
own
I'm
party.
sorry, I can't hear
We
you,
have lost
Stacey.
viewers
Charles
over this.
Manson is ranting. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Why would you want
I mean,
less
I have
people?
no
We have
idea what
lost
you're
viewers.
talking
We have lost viewers over this. So let's move on. Aguna, you didn't comment on this.
No, I didn't. I mean, again, this is
He
dysfunction at
did.
its finest. And part of this was when McCarthy agreed to the House rules of the vote that can remove him as speaker.
Any
He made a
one
deal with
vote.
the devil, and the
Yeah.
next speaker is going to have to deal with the same thing. And you see it playing out in grand fashion at a time where the House needs to function. Again, the Republicans, this goes back to the grand old party not having a platform, a legitimate platform to run on. They just ran on a platform. If you hate Joe Biden, put the Republicans in office. They spent a lot of time trying to impeach Joe Biden, doing this Hunter Biden investigation, doing all these
No, they
things.
didn't.
They when they could have been trying to make an impact.
clown.
They didn't want to raise the
No, they
debt ceiling.
didn't.
Now they didn't want to do the budget. So this is just functioning. Now they can't even pick a leader to create any platform that they don't have. So I mean, again, when you don't have a vision, when you're beholden to Donald Trump, who doesn't have a vision and it's just about grievance, this is what plays out. Most of these House Republicans are being engaged on not what they do, but what they don't do. So this is playing directly into their constituency when, hey, government's gridlock. We don't believe in government anyway. So the fact is gridlock to that small Freedom Caucus or whatever has evolved into MAGA Republicans, it's fine because the government isn't legitimate anyway. So this is what happens. This is how it's going to play out. And again, America, this is what you get when you vote for the opposition party and they don't have a platform.
But I think this is State of the Union. This is the state of our country right now. I mean, just give you an example. Look at this show. On this show, we have presumably we have 3 Republicans on this show, yet we all differ. All 3 of us would disagree on certain things that are probably very important. So
what?
There it is.
But then
That's
how do
what
we
America
disagree, though?
is.
Yeah,
America-
differing is fine. Then you compromise and come up with different ways to get the task done.
But
Now,
you-
the issue
but you
here,
But we
see
won't
it. I mean,
compromise.
I'm glad you pointed out,
hold up,
Keith, that you see it
We
on the
won't
show.
compromise.
Hold up, Aguna. Let me do this real quick. So
Yeah.
the issue is, as Aguna laid out, when you have 2 separate coalitions who really don't have a vision, don't have an idea about governing, everything is culture war and grievance, at that point, it's hard to figure out how you come together for a common goal. So when
Right.
you have the Jim Jordan coalition there, here's the issue with Jim Jordan. He has never passed a piece of legislation. He has never co-sponsored a piece of legislation. His whole political persona has been pointing a finger at Fauci, pointing a finger at Biden, and whatever other thing the so-called left represents. That's his political
Get the
personality. That becomes difficult when it comes to, okay, how do we govern? How do we figure out a consensus to get what we want done? So the Republicans are having trouble here. Now, when we're having this discussion and someone says, well, the Democrats did, well, no, this is not about the Democrats. You have a majority and you're actually wasting it because you're not taking advantage of the people who sent you to DC to get these things done. And at a certain point, you can't blame the other party for that. Now, Hakeem Jeffries and the Dems are just laughing, knowing Hakeem's never going to get that spot because at some point the Republicans will come together and figure out some way to put one of them in the seat. They're not going to give the seat away. I mean, the speaker position away. But still, taking all of this time, not getting the things done that are needed, what you end up doing is leading to apathy for your own base who sent you there thinking you were going to get something done, and all you're doing is giving them Facebook platitudes.
Now let me respond to that. Now let me respond to that by saying some things should not be done. You mean getting things done. Things should not be done that are being done because
Like
it's
what?
contrary to the Constitution. If you know the Constitution, it limits
That's-
government, and they have gone
Like
far
what?
beyond
Like
the
what?
limits.
Like what? Like what? Like
Well,
what?
like
Balancing
the
the budget.
budgets, the spending budgets. We're spending money like crazy. We're sending
what
money all over
governments
the
do,
country,
though.
all over the world.
So,
No,
Yeah.
we're spending
That's
money
what
like
governments
crazy.
do.
so
No.
where
No,
should
no,
we
that's
Well,
not.
stop?
wait, wait, wait.
That's
subjective.
Remember,
But
No,
remember a few weeks ago.
no.
we
Excuse
do,
me.
gov-
Excuse me. Remember a few weeks ago, I put up on the screen, I shared a screen that talked about the presidents who spent a lot of money. And Ronald Reagan was one of them. So how
don't
do you
care.
justify not
And
spending
I don't
money as a
justify that
Republican?
either.
This is
I
unprecedented.
never justify that. I didn't justify Ronald Reagan. I don't justify Nixon. I don't justify anybody who is doing beyond what the Constitution has granted them power to do. That's all I'm saying.
so
And
let
if
me
you
ask you
read your
something, Keith. How does
Constitution,
government
you would know
spending
that.
impact you negatively? How does government spending
Well, because
impact
they
you
are
negatively?
spending money that's trillions of dollars far into future generations. And that's my grandchildren's
Oh, so
grandchildren.
you're concerned
or
about
your
future
children's
generations,
children.
right?
Okay.
Yes,
So
I am,
we're-
because
we're-
that is
look,
not the form. Not the purpose
We're
of
making the
government.
benefits
Now,
of the
listen,
government spending
let me
back
also
in the
say,
1800s.
our
We're
borders
making
are wide open. Our borders are open. They're giving money to illegals. that they
again. You're
don't
not
give to
answering the question.
citizens.
I'm
No,
saying,
I'm
how does
telling
government
you,
spending
I already,
impact you personally? And
I
you're
just
saying
told
you're worried
you.
about future generations.
I just
That's
told
what
you,
you're saying.
the black
You're worried
community
about future
is not
generations.
receiving money that it could have because they're giving it to illegals. Simple as that. And it is a
He
You're
said the
not
fact.
black
answering the
community
question.
isn't
Again,
receiving it because
I
they're
asked
giving it
you
to illegals.
specifically,
That's
how
right.
does government
That's right.
spending negatively impact you?
So
You
wait,
talked
no, no,
about
no.
Well, I am a
How
black
did they
man
give it
who
to the
lives
black
in the
community?
And we're the benefactors of government.
I live in the community. I have
So let
a
me make this
program,
point, Stacey.
and my
Let me make this
program. Why
point.
can't
Okay.
my
We're
program
benefiting
be?
All right,
from
all right.
the overspending
All right.
of previous administrations. We're now
No.
benefiting from it. We're benefiting from the seed
No,
money
you're
that
not.
the government gave to the space program
No.
that came up with the microwave, came up with
No.
the internet. All
I
of
think
that
there
was
are many
excessive.
blacks
The
who
microwave and the
spending.
internet are not good
I mean,
things.
all of that. No, that's
No.
the government spending so that private companies could take that technology
Microwaves
and
are
make money
horrible.
off of it. So
Well,
again,
why are the
we're
black
the
community still
benefactors.
talking?
Again, I'm gonna
Why-
emphasize this point. You guys can't negate this. We're the benefactors of government spending from previous generations. All right. If the previous governments of previous generations said, "Hey, let's stop spending," we would be a quote unquote third world or developing nation right now. But they spent the money so that we can live the lifestyles that we live. And if we're smart about what we're spending, we are putting the future generation in a position to solve the problems. We don't even know our problems yet. That's called an investment. So all this nonsense about, oh, I'm worried about future generations. You never answer the question. How does government spending impact you personally? Because it doesn't. The average American is not negatively impacted by government spending. What we do is we latch onto these narratives because they
government
sound
spending
good, but we
at
can
the
never
gas
articulate how government spending
That's for
is
sure.
impacting my kitchen table. You can't
The
do
gas
that.
pump,
You
Okay.
haven't.
the gas pump, food prices, farming.
The gas
food
pump has
prices,
nothing to do
gas
with government
pump.
spending.
All of that
That's
is
Okay.
private
government
companies. What are you talking
Yes,
about?
it
Government
is.
spending?
Yes,
All right,
it
one
is.
more comment,
Yes, it
and then we have
is.
to start our roundtable. One more comment,
Well, how
and then
else
we
is
start
it
our
done?
roundtable.
Yeah. So
Julio, or cousin Todd.
Go ahead,
sir.
Julio.
That's
well,
right.
No,
I
you
mean,
go.
we haven't heard from Todd, but
No,
Go ahead,
you
cousin-
go.
Go ahead, Julio.
Yeah, you go. Nas.
okay. So first things first, every government on this earth not only is dependent on spending because that way you're financing your economy, but without it, you actually would not have an economy. 55%. I'm sorry. Y'all check those numbers to make sure I got that exactly correct. Of the economy in America, we're talking about GDP, is government spending. And again, I give the same analogy every time. When Aguna, as the big bourgeois financier, goes to the grocery store and a teacher goes to the grocery store, when the money goes into the cash register, the teachers doesn't say government spending and Aguna says private spending. It goes into the whole pot of the economy and keeps it turning. When you actually restrict government spending, you know what happens? Your GDP shrinks and you cause inflation, and you actually can end up in a recession by limiting government spending. So let's go to the top economies in the world. That would be the USA, Germany, France, England, China, Saudi Arabia. All of these countries are dependent on government spending, not only to finance their economy, but also because if you're going to be a colossus in this world, you're going to have an amount of credit to be able to do the things you want to do, large scale projects, big scale things. Any country who does not have access to credit, countries like Syria, Somalia, Afghanistan, those countries are very poor. They can't do government spending because people don't believe in their economy, won't invest in it. And because of that, those countries are struggling. So go look at all the countries who have really low government spending and compare them to the ones who have high government spending and decide if you want to live in either one. I can't make it any simpler than that.
But wait. That was simple. But Keith said that the Constitution says that we are not, as America, is supposed. This is what Keith says. The Constitution says, according to Keith, that we are not supposed to spend like that. How do you justify that now? I mean, Julio.
Yeah, this has already been worked out. Matter of fact, there was a big historic fight you can actually pick up and read about. This was between Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, where Thomas Jefferson said, sound money, we don't want to borrow anything. And Hamilton had to tell him, there's a reason he's on that $10 bill. Look, man, we have to have credit. We want to make trade and deals with Europe. We want to advance as a country. And to do that, we're going to have to get into this game that everybody else is getting into, which means government spending and treasury, which is why they chose the Hamilton route. And you look at our economy and you figure out that, yeah, Hamilton was right. That's how that white man got his face on that money.
Okay, thank you. Let's start our roundtable, starting with Keith, Stephen, Nas, Aguna, and Cousin Todd. Keith, anything you want to comment on?
Well, when government spends, every time government spends, it takes over. It takes over that area that it's spending on. It's like if the government comes and knocks on your door and says to me, I'm from the government. This is what Reagan says. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Okay, that's like food stamps, welfare, those type of things. That's what they told the black community. I'm going to use the blacks, for example, because there are still blacks. There's still black people talking about getting reparations. Now, where would reparations come from? And why haven't we gotten reparations? I mean, those are just two questions. If government is so great with spending, so the whole thing is a farce, because now they knock on my door and say, well, I want to give you money because you can't survive alone. So you need help from the government. So they give us the welfare, they give us the food stamps, they give us all those things. And every time they do that, they control more
that's not even
of our
small percentage of what government spends money on.
That's not even income. So that means that blacks,
the biggest welfare is the military
and they're
budget.
still suffering. Hello, this is my roundtable.
Okay.
Blacks have gotten those things and they're still suffering because they got those things. We got all those things and we're still suffering. At least that's what blacks are saying. Many blacks. So you tell me.
So only black people are on welfare?
You tell me how
please let me go after him.
Yeah, you can go after me, because
what are you talking about?
I want you to explain.
You went from government spending to black.
Come on, let me finish up. See, you guys you may laugh and mock.
Uncle Ruckus.
You may
Uncle
laugh
Ruckus,
and
we get
mock
it. You
it
hate
out.
black people.
You may laugh all you want. You can mock it all you want. But I can tell you from living in California, there are blacks who are saying this, and this is what they say. I'm a conservative. I don't say this, but this is what blacks are saying.
Okay,
They're
are
saying,
you done?
That's what blacks are saying.
Okay, we got it. Keith,
Okay,
well-known black explainer.
Okay, wait a minute. No. Oh, wait, just a second. I need to present the screen according to
so that's how you explain.
Aguna.
The federal government.
Aguna. Keith does not look like Uncle Ruckus.
Uncle Ruckus said, if you drink the bathwater of white people, you will go to white man's house.
We are being denied, according to them, we are being denied certain types of income that we should be having, called reparations.
Okay.
I want you to explain to me why we don't get reparations.
Keith is a thin guy. Look at this. Keith is a thin guy. Keith is not Uncle Ruckus. Keith is
man, this is sad. Okay,
So,
All right, now, no.
want-
Sorry, Julio, you can't go.
Yes,
Finish,
he's
so
going.
I want you to explain
Keith
it.
is
No,
finished.
and then Stephen,
No.
Ethan and Stephen.
Explain
We're
why
doing
we
it in
haven't got
order.
reparations.
It's my
Explain why we
turn.
haven't got reparations.
No, it's Stephen. We're going in order, and then
No,
Julio. Go
because
ahead,
they'll
Stephen.
forget the points that Keith made. So
Okay,
No, they won't.
can I go now?
no,
Can I go?
No.
no, just
I want to answer
No.
Aguna's question. Aguna said, "How does government spending hurt us Americans?" I'll tell you how. Americans spending so much money in Ukraine, but at the same time, they've cut back people who need help. They've cut back on the benefits of people and food stamps and stuff like that in this country, and they put so much money into the Ukraine. And the government always is always giving people coming through what 8-10 million, whatever we decide on coming through the border. They give them thousands of dollars every month. But you know what? The people that are here, that were born here, that are American citizens, they get far less. Even people that start time in the military get far less. People in Ukraine are getting. We're paying for their benefits. We're paying their livelihoods. We're giving them everything. We're giving people coming through our southern border a living paycheck, a living wager. This is what our country's doing, and not for our people. So if you believe that you're so smart and you because you don't. What's going on is we're all getting screwed. And I'm not individually getting screwed. I don't depend on the government for me. But there are people who are in this country, that have been in this country, that are getting less benefits because of everything we give to other countries and give to people that come from other countries to this country. How stupid are you? How stupid? Now tell me how stupid I am. Tell me how stupid I am. This is what's happening in your country. And that's how the government, Aguna, hurts our citizens. That's how they hurt us.
To the Ukraine.
Because they give it to everybody else. And you can eat Nas's Atlanta Falcons hat.
The immigrants are getting
Because you're wrong. You're wrong. Nas, you're wrong. Todd, you're wrong.
Are they just eating the money or are they spending it? Are they going
We're
to
getting
screwed in the economy?
Citizens screwed. Maybe we don't feel it. Maybe we're all so rich we don't feel it. But there's people in this country that've been here all their lives. They serve this country. They're getting screwed. We're giving all this money to Ukraine. We're giving all this money to people who are invading our country. Now, who's the retard? It ain't me. Maybe I get loud. Maybe I get mad. But y'all are the ones that are really, really need and be an independent thinker. Don't be a Democrat. Don't be a Republican. Think for yourself, because I need you. Oz, I need you.
Nonsense.
I need you. I need you, Stacy. Be an independent thinker. Don't be a Democrat or a Republican. Be for yourself.
All right.
Because they're killing us here. Our own.
Stacy.
And I laid it out and I proved my point.
Yeah, you did.
I said.
All right.
God bless us, everyone.
That's right.
Nah,
Man.
Julio, I'm sorry.
Okay. So first things first, I guess we'll address what Stephen just said. So as far as international funding or anything coming from the military, there's not an allocated pot of money that you put your hand into and then it's all gone because it went to Ukraine. One doesn't affect the other. If you want to talk about the DOD or how you don't think we should be investing that way, that's one argument, but it has nothing to do with domestic spending. Domestic spending is its own choice. Now, I'm gonna ask Todd two questions. So Todd, when the bill was brought up, the anti-price gouging bill to stop oil companies and different corporations from being able to overcharge Americans and disguise it as the idea of inflation being the cause of it, which party presented that bill? Which party voted against it?
Democrats and Republicans voted against it.
Thank you. Now, the other part is when it comes to austerity measures after the pandemic, when they said we got to get government spending under control, and that means entitlements. Which party made that battle cry, and then was able to cut those entitlements?
Oh, Republicans cut those entitlements because they figure you should pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, right, Keith?
Thank you. Okay, so we just showed in a quick fashion which party was deciding to cut those benefits to those people you're suddenly concerned about. Now let's move over to Mr. Keith. So Keith said these black people, for some reason, he figured he'd just point out black people
And
who
more
are
white
under
people are on
under the
welfare.
poverty line and eligible for food stamps, when in reality, because America's majority white, there are more white food stamps holders. But it's not because they're
What?
white. It's because this is a very big country and there's a lot of people who live below the poverty line. Now, when we have food stamps in your state, Keith, do you know what happens? The food stamps are allocated on the 1st and 15th. That EBT card comes out. What does that mean? That means truck drivers will be driving goods to these grocery stores, work hours for them. That means you'll have checkers in your line, stockers in the store, which means what? They'll get 40 hours a week as opposed to part-time work. That means Kroger, Albertsons, Publix, any grocery store you want to think of has a team of lobbyists who would beat you with a bag of nickels if anybody in Congress ever tried to cut away welfare, because welfare is also an economic stimulant for this country. It's not meant to be something to pull people out of poverty. It's for subsistence. It's to keep people alive. Before we had the welfare system, do you know how many Americans starved to death? Not to mention Social Security when we talk about the elderly who could not afford to feed themselves after their days of, working age at that time were over. So these programs actually stimulate the economy, keep people alive, and actually prepare the next generation for life. Now, when it came to the child tax credit, Biden's bill that Republicans fought against so hard, what did that do? It pulled 30% more of children out of poverty and hunger, I guess you could say. I don't want to say starvation level, but hunger. That helped those people. And who does that also help? Tyson Food. Think of any big agri company you want to, meat packing, vegetables, as far as the farmers bringing their stuff to market. This helps all of them. Why? Because you live in a complicated economy and one hand washes the other. That's the difficulty of understanding, like this thing where you do, well, these people on welfare and the black people. Why would you focus on black poverty and treat it as if it's something against them? How about you talk about the deindustrialization of the American worker that goes back a few decades, where we started sending jobs overseas because it was more profitable for companies to live off cheap labor than it was to pay Americans a good wage with benefits. Go back to the days of Henry Ford, where Henry Ford said, look, man, if my workers can't afford to buy a Ford, then why would they keep working for me? And he paid an above value wage because he knew those people would buy cars. And that created one of the greatest economies ever seen. So stop trying to kick around poor people. Be courageous and go after the people who actually cause these economic crises that we see in America as far as the average American standard of living. And stop living with this welfare queen myth. Nonsense.
Thank you.
As far as you would be great.
And as far as your boy, hold on,
the conservatives ought to hire you.
Hold on,
no,
Horse.
seriously.
And as far as your boy Reagan,
you would make a
as
great
far as your boy Reagan, he used this welfare queen thing as a trope, and you people internalized it and used it for decades as a political weapon to beat down the very people who had no political representation in Congress, let alone in their own state. And y'all should be ashamed to call yourselves Christians as y'all do. And I ain't there, man.
Thank you. Aguna.
Man, you would make a great argument. You would be great for the conservatives against reparations. I love it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he's trying to save face. At the end of the day, this show legitimizes why we can't have a debate on why Congress is so dysfunctional, right? I lean towards the Republican Party of old.
Are you saying that's because we are so dysfunctional?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you have individuals on this show, one that just left, that just doesn't want to have an educated conversation around any topic. It's not even about just a topic. Any topic, he cannot articulate an argument or even legitimize his stance.
Well, he's stupid. He's stupid
about it, and he yells over everyone else.
Yeah.
He's legitimately trying to make points and engage in an educated debate. Yeah, I respect Keith for his points. I know half of them, or most of them, 90% of them are wrong. But it's like you don't have educated debate. The viewers can't hear what we're talking about. And so when we get on this show and you have people just yelling for the sake of yelling and saying you're wrong and not even having facts or any type of data points to point out the fact that, his argument, and then he yells and gets off the show and calls people liars and all that other stuff. I mean, that legitimately shows our viewers what the dysfunction of Congress is about. Because you have people that just want chaos for the sake of chaos. They don't want to have these policy debates. They don't want to have legitimate government working. They don't want to rein in spending. They want to just throw everything out and not talk about, because at the end of the day, all this dependency that Keith is talking about, if you took a fraction of the military budget in this country and put it towards entitlements or all these other things that he supposedly, black people are dependent on, you're not talking about the real wealth. The real welfare is the military industrial complex, because all that Ukraine aid is going to military contractors. That's why you have Republicans sitting there saying, hey, stop all this aid to the Ukraine. Their constituents are getting money from it. All these illegal immigration subsidies that you're making up and talking about, where does that money go? That goes to U.S. companies to provide to provide those services and that. So like Nas was talking about, it's actually a trickle-down effect of these government subsidies. And governments have always spent money. That's how it works. So if we want to have a policy debate, we want to talk about taxes and how, hey, I'm all for cutting taxes, making me keep my money and not punishing me for spending money that I choose not to spend. We can have those types of debates. But all this dark web nonsense that you and Steven always come on the show with, no facts, no figures, just talking points from the dark web and from Fox News, and no wanting to actually engage in a debate to come up with a compromise is actually going to really move this country forward. It's a waste of everyone's time, because you guys have agendas. You don't want to work with anybody. You don't want the people you send to Washington to work with anybody. And so there you go. That's what you have right now, dysfunctioning government, because you don't even believe in the government that you so-called love in this country, right? So for those of us Americans who understand that government spending doesn't necessarily affect me personally, other than the stocks that I'm invested in, because I know if there's dysfunction in Washington, sometimes it has economic ramifications. But again, most Americans don't even invest in the stock market. So that's one of the things you got to talk about. All this stuff you're talking, Keith, come on now.
And that's why you don't have a libertarian village, let alone a city or state, because that doesn't actually work. The whole my way or nothing else. Like at a certain point, there has to be citizens, and there's a form of community where a country has to somewhat work together. Now, Keith,
otherwise democracies fail.
I'm sure the public roads that you drive on, you never consider that that comes from everybody pooling together to make those things happen. So yeah, we got to be adults about these conversations and stop presenting ourselves as some kind of self-sufficient libertarians who've never taken anything from the government, when in actual reality, we all
right, we have comments. Excuse me, we have comments from someone named Nidzaman that says we have to do something. And then Great says someone needs to do something about this. And then Nidzaman says they can't keep getting away with this. Great puts his hand over his face. Nidzaman says, bring Steven back.
Well, very educated comment.
Great says, free the patriot, Steven. Why silence a patriot?
And the patriot has to have something to say. Yeah. He has to have something to say.
And to quote the greatest writer in American history, which is Mark Twain, who said, patriotism, the last refuge of a scoundrel. These people who wrap themselves in patriotism, but do everything against their other countrymen, with the idea of selfishness being the main point, they missed the whole point of actual patriotism, which would be the people who risk their lives every day trying to help other people, the people who work to benefit other people. But this whole screaming and yelling about who you don't like and calling yourself a patriot,
because he couldn't articulate an argument. He wanted to put his hands over his ears
and not
engage in debate. Is that a patriot?
All right, this is Cousin Todd's roundtable, and then
sorry, cousin.
No, that's all right, because I'm only going to take a second. And talk about Keith talking about black people on welfare, not white people.
Well, why would you pick on Keith?
Well, I'm going to get to Steven too. I'm going to get to Steven.
Because Keith is on here by himself.
Give me a minute. I'll get to Steven too. But I just wanted to slap Keith around because he likes to talk about black people on welfare when there's more whites on welfare. So why wouldn't you use white people to make your point?
Well, because
we already went over that.
I wanted to answer his question real quick. The reason I use blacks is because that's what you hear from the most. You don't hear a lot of whites talking about it. So go.
From what? From what? From what source? What are you talking about? That's what you
Well,
use.
I guess it's
Cousin
I live
Todd,
in
this is Cousin Todd's roundtable. You guys are talking over Cousin Todd's
You
roundtable.
hear that black people are complaining about welfare the most, and what are you listening to hear this?
California.
Okay.
Walking down the street.
California. Here
So
I
anyway,
Thank you for that clarification.
and then for Stephen's comment about we're giving too much money away, who should we not give money to? What countries? Israel? We give Israel more money than any other country. So should we stop giving Israel money?
$4 billion a year.
Well,
Okay,
Israel's the only
250 million
democracy,
you wanted to give to
only
Ukraine, you wanted to give
democracy
them
in the
250
Middle
million?
East. They're the only democracy in the
Who
Middle
should we
East.
stop? You just complained about giving away all of our money.
Yeah, but
So
they're our allies. They are just like us.
Yeah, we give
Okay,
all of
this
our
is Todd's
allies.
roundtable. Todd, we're out of time. You can't go back and
Okay,
forth
we
with
give all
with
of our
Keith.
allies
So
money.
we're
We
not
don't
trying to
give
make
our
the Ukraine like us.
adversaries money. We only give our allies money. So what are you talking about? So anyway,
Go ahead,
the
Todd.
point was Stephen and Keith are ridiculous, and then they
What does giving
they're a
money mean?
contradiction. Well, they figure they're handing them over all the money, and
Blank
that way
check.
we're not giving it to the blacks on welfare. So anyway, it's just a ridiculous argument to make.
Write the check.
Yeah,
That
you
is-
guys
the
don't
enemies.
really. So you guys
Free
don't really think
Stephen.
that
Free Stephen.
this whole thing about we've got to this debt. We're at the end. I mean, this every year they do this. So
That's
I guess
Republicans
it's okay.
do that.
The
Right,
Republicans
it's
do
okay
that.
with you guys, right? It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
They should just,
Not
It's
only
a
not
thing.
only
But
is
only
it okay.
because when Trump was in
Again,
office, they didn't do this. Trump was in
we've
office.
worked on
No.
this multiple times, Keith. When it
Yeah,
comes
go
to
ahead,
the
Don.
U.S. debt, that is the assets of the wealthy class in America. If you got
Okay.
rid of U.S. debt, you would bankrupt the economy because those people have invested in U.S. bonds, treasuries, and the country. So if you got rid of the debt, which means they would lose all of their money because then they wouldn't get the return they're supposed to for the bond they paid for. So why
it's
do
all
you
a
want to
big-
rob rich people?
So it's all a big
Okay,
farce,
thank you.
right?
We're-
It's all
No,
We're
it's
out of
not
time.
a farce. It's an investment in the country.
No, I'm saying
out
it's
of
a
time.
farce that they're telling the American people, oh my
Yes.
God, we got to approve this raise the debt ceiling. Otherwise, we're in trouble.
No,
You know,
you got-
we have
you
to-
got-
Yes,
you
that's
gotta
the
vote the Republican
Republicans
Party.
doing
Yeah.
that.
You're
Yeah,
paying
it's
for
a
money
farce.
you already spent.
No,
And
that's-
that's why.
Okay.
That's
To our
why.
first responders in our communities, you make our lives livable. Thank you, thank you, thank
We're
you. To
actually
our
that's
women
why
and
we
men
can't have a
of the
discussion.
U.S. military, to our U.S. men and women of the military, thank you for all you do and sacrificing your lives so that we are free to say whatever we choose on the show. We are forever indebted. On behalf of Aguna,
Free
the Nigerian
Stephen
moderate
from
Republican,
himself. Free Stephen from himself.
Keith, the constitutional conservative,
And why don't you read that one time?
That would help.
Stephen, the independent thinker,
You can show a blank screen. He independently thought his way
and
off the show.
my cousin Todd.
Is that a
Just
collar? That's a
real
butterfly
quick.
collar? Well, you just came in
No.
the disco. Go ahead, boy. Yeah, there you go. Disco Godfather.
Oh, you are always in my clothes. Get out of here.
Why would you
Dude,
say
you got
Disco
Rudy Ray Moore
Godfather?
over here.
Let me
Disco
find out
Godfather,
Aguna
yeah.
been watching Dolomite. What?
This is not a butterfly
Godfather,
collar.
put your weight on it,
This
Todd.
is a-
Put your weight on it. Put your weight on it.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Nas. I mean, Julio, for joining us this evening and for
Put your
showing
weight
your.
on it, Todd.
Everybody want to clap for Julio showing his face this evening.
Yeah,
Okay.
man. You
Can't
gotta be
believe
careful.
it.
This
You're
is
gonna
out
get a
of
tax
hand.
bill. The
This
IRS
is
is
out
watching
of
this show. They're gonna send you a tax bill, and we ain't gonna be able to help you.
Butterfly collar. This is no
Isn't that
butterfly
right,
collar.
Keith?
What is the
I
matter
just
with
hired
you?
all those new IRS agents to come
Check
after
us
us
out.
as American people.
Okay, check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, X, and Stephanie Stallworth's The Flow Television Network. We'll see you next week. Where's my music?
Yeah.
Good night.
Fly away, Todd. Fly away, Todd.
This is not a butterfly collar. What? This is a small collar. You got some. I don't even know.
Man, it's like J.J. Evans over there, man.
I don't know what you're
Dynamite.
talking about. I forget what I was going to say now. Forget
Of course
it.
Something about Stephen.
Something
No,
about.
he wasn't.
I think it was about Stephen. I forget, but it was probably about Stephen with his with the
Well,
what countries does he not want to give money to? And Keith said only to our allies. Well, we don't give money to our enemies.
Oh, really? We don't give money to Iran and to the Hamas and
well, do we
don't
want to talk
supply-
about what Biden did? Nas, Nas, can you talk about what Biden did with Venezuela Monday?
Yeah, okay. This is kind of a callback to conversations we had past couple of weeks, but Joe Biden has made a deal with Venezuela in order to ease some sanctions against Venezuela,
Right.
in order for Venezuela to sell some oil to America. And you know what that means. Now the Saudi Arabians can't push us around as much anymore because we will have another reliable oil source that's also closer, a little more expensive, but it takes away it takes away a little bit of the leverage of Saudi Arabia being able to kind of punish Joe Biden at the pump whenever they didn't like where the talks were going. They would kind of, squeeze everyday Americans and kind of force Joe Biden's hand in negotiations. You add another player to the table, and now that takes away a lot of the strength of the Saudi Arabians when it comes to oil.
And Venezuelan
As
is
you
our
see the
friends.
I said
The
ease
article from
sanctions.
thehill.com by Rachel Frazen. It says Biden relieves sanctions on Venezuelan oil after election deal.
Whatever that means. So
Well,
Venezuela.
I
is
just
our
kind of
friend.
told
you
you
can't-
exactly what it means. I just told what's not computing.
So
Well, I'm asking
here's the
you,
thing.
why are
Venezuela.
Venezuelans
So the
leaving
reason why
Venezuela to come
Iran
here?
and China and Russia, the reason why they're gaining influence in the world is because they legitimately don't care what countries do to their people or the governments that they have.
Correct.
They just say, hey, you know what? Do what you want. We're going to help you with infrastructure. Sell us your resources, and they gain influence, especially in countries that don't embrace democracy. So now you have this power shift, right? So the U.S., in order to compensate for that, you got to start working with these countries that you normally wouldn't necessarily work with because U.S. policy would be like, hey, you know what? You don't have a democracy. We're not buying your oil. We're not doing this. But we're in a global economy. So in order to compete with a China, compete with a Russia, compete with India, you got to be able to create these economic partnerships through relieving sanctions and things like that to these unsavory countries. It's not like we haven't dealt with unsavory countries before, right?
That's
it's just a
right.
matter of what's in our interest. So, you
That's
look
right.
at the supply
And
chain, like Nas was saying, Venezuela is closer than Saudi Arabia. You want to be able to, you just said you were blaming government for gas prices. Now you probably look at this and be like, look at Joe Biden's working with, these socialist countries. Yeah.
Well,
So
why
I
can't
mean,
we
where do you
produce
want
our
it?
own
It's all
gas?
about the dollar. It's all about the
Why
dollar.
can't we produce our own oil and gas? Why can't we get our own resources?
How many times are we gonna have this? We do produce our own, but again,
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Well, let me take it off cam before
Yes,
I
we
use my
do,
analogy
man.
again.
But you know what? You know what Obama did? He said that you no longer have to sell it domestically, right? So you can sell it on the global market. So these companies in the U.S. who, again, we've gone over these numbers, Keith. They're you sit here and say we're not tapping into our resources. There are oil licenses. There are thousands of oil licenses going unused by U.S. companies.
He just put a
today,
ban on
right?
uranium.
They can tap into those.
mining.
They don't.
He just put a
They
ban
don't
on
do it
uranium
because
mining in the Grand Canyon.
It's about the money. You're trying to jump around because I'm going to make this point. They can sell it on the global market for a profit, and as long as you rely on an oil cartel to set the price of oil, they're not going to sit there and put the price low to help you out. They're going to slow down demand. They're going to increase demand, slow down supply. And that's what if I'm Exxon, unless the U.S. comes in and says, Exxon, you can't ship domestic oil overseas, which you would call regulation. You're not going to force a U.S. company to lower oil prices. They're going to put it on the global market. That's what they're doing.
So since we're doing everything right, according to you, then our
I'm not saying we're doing it right. It's just saying
Well, wait,
you
wait,
got
wait,
to
wait.
make
Hold
it
on.
sense.
No,
Be
no,
honest
I
with
want you
yourself.
to-
I'm not saying
I
they're
want
doing
you
it
to
right.
explain
Just be
this.
honest.
Okay, so explain why our economy. Why are we paying more at the pump and more at the grocery store and more everywhere we go? Why are we
So
paying
more
more?
at the pump?
everyone in the world is, because we're still dealing with the supply chain effects of the pandemic, where not only do companies no longer exist anymore, but we also learned that certain things you actually shouldn't trust to the global market. So the essentials, when we had the pandemic and they said, you know what, maybe it's not a good idea that China is making our face masks and things like that. Maybe we should have a supply chain for those type of things on our own. And every country globally is figuring out those same things. They're having these discussions and deciding, hey, if something bad happens and disrupts the chain, why should we be on the outs? So we're seeing a lot of turnover amongst companies all over the world because they have to think differently, even though globalization is not going anywhere. But you have to protect your own domestic economy in a certain sense, because when things, when ish hits the fan, what do? So that's the difficulty of that.
That to the average household?
So let's go to the next.
You're taking quite a while to explain it.
Let's go to the next.
If you build things domestically, it increases the cost.
So why does the average household
build things domestically, it increases the cost.
Every single thing we do, we pay more money.
Exactly.
And I just want to know
that's happening globally.
As Stacy would ask, one of Stacy's favorite questions.
Let me finish.
Well, how does that equate to the
your inability to concentrate and wanting everything in soundbite form is a big reason why you're having
I'm asking
problem understanding.
You live by the bumper sticker, Keith.
You're not
Everything's not going to be quick. Everything's not going to be quick.
You're not making it simple. You guys are.
All right, we got to go. It's 9 o'clock. We're out of time. Thank you.
We're explaining it to you. Keith, at the end of the day, you don't want to listen to what we got to say. You don't want to listen to what we got to say.
If Johnny has 4 apples, I mean, there's only so many ways we can say the same thing to you. Like, I've explained this in cocaine terms. I've tried many different ways to try to engage you, but you refuse to understand. So again, with oil,
he doesn't want to.
We do not have the monopoly on oil. Number 1, Saudi Arabia. Number 2, Venezuela. Saudi Arabia is cheaper to get the oil out. Venezuela, a little more expensive. So those are the countries with the most oil.
Why don't we have the monopoly?
Because we don't have the most in the ground. That was God's decision, not ours.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you sure of that? We don't drill.
Yes, I'm sure of that.
We ban drilling.
Yes. No, we have
don't
not.
Drill.
You don't know what you're talking about.
That's
part of the problem.
Trump is saying that we're going to drill when he starts. Obviously we're not drilling.
So let's solve this problem. If we did drill, hold on, let's do this. Let's make you CEO oil man. Let's say you said, okay, Trump said we can drill more. Okay, I'm going to drill more. So you start to drill. Now, the 2 monopolies I just described to you, if they see you drill more, what would be their reaction to you drilling for more oil?
They're going to drill more.
So? Okay.
They're going to pump
since
more
they have more, hold on. Since they have more than you, how long? How long
how do you know they have
You're going to be out of, Keith is going to be out of business.
How long can you, just hold on. We do know.
How do you know they have
They
more
can
than
look
us?
at these things under the earth. That's why you get speculation and everything else.
But where do you get that information from? That we
can look
we don't have
online.
as much?
You can go to OPEC and Google these things. You can look it up yourself.
That may not be,
But let me just finish. Let's just finish this last point.
You're trying
and
to
this will
deflect
explain.
because you don't have a
So,
point.
No, I'm not deflecting. I'm asking.
So Keith,
I just don't get it.
Okay.
Look, guys,
just be quiet for 1 second.
Stupidity for a moment.
It's supply and demand. They can
you call me
supply
dumb,
more supply
so I
if
need
you try
you
to
to
drill
educate
domestically.
me. I
They'll
need you to
flood the
educate
market.
me. How is it that we don't have as much oil?
Right.
I need you to educate me. I don't know why it is that we don't have enough oil. What is it you're saying here? We don't drill for oil. We have banned oiling. We have banned
oil
gas.
isn't in a lack of supply around the world.
We don't use nuclear.
Oil is not in
what do we
scarce
have
supply.
and what are we actually producing?
Okay.
What are we producing here?
So again,
oil is not in short supply around the world. There's an abundance of it.
Right.
It is regulated by
including in the United States, right? Including here, right?
No, but you're not listening. For the amount
So we're
of
the
time
only ones
and
running
effort
out?
it would take. Again,
no one said anything about running out. Well, at this point, this is
drill.
pointless.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I gotta go. We have to go. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good night.
We'll talk next week. Thanks a lot for educating
night.
us.
Again, you
See
made
you
no
next week.
point, Keith. You made no
God
point.
bless you guys.